Welcome to Evaluating Technology Enhanced Learning. In this recording, we will discuss approaches to the evaluation of blended modules. The principles will be applicable, though, to all forms of technology enhanced learning, from blended to fully online delivery. Here's our roadmap, with the session divided up into 4 parts, dealing with design issues and approaches to evaluation, followed by data collection methods, what's available to us, and how we can plan this into course design and delivery. We finish up with a discussion on evaluation data, what it may tell us, and what actions we should take as a result. So why evaluate? For any type of module that we deliver, in order to judge its effectiveness, we need to be thinking about the degree to which the learning objectives are met by students. How can we support a continuous process of improvement in the way that we design and support student learning? The key to answering these questions is through the development of an evaluation strategy. A bit of context to start with on evaluation and where it fits in terms of course development. Evaluation should be seen as a core component of the development cycle in designing, delivering and refining a module, as depicted in the slide. This is true whether you're delivering a module for the first time or many times. Lessons learned from the evaluation phase feed into the course design, task design and range of instructional responsibilities, influencing the reflection, design and delivery phases of a future course. If nothing else, this virtuous development cycle highlights the importance of evaluation in feeding through lessons learned to future courses, so that we have an appreciation of what works and which aspects of the course need changing, an organic rather than static approach to course delivery. A key message to bear in mind is that evaluation should not be an afterthought for attention when a module is already being delivered, but instead a feature of module planning before it is delivered and embedded within the overall design of the course. Appropriate methods should be identified, as well as instructions prepared for students and a norming phase so that they are ready to learn, and that should be built in as well to your course design. If you're looking to publish the results of an experimental course design, you will also need to think about arranging an ethics approval consent form as well. So, how do we get started in thinking about our evaluation strategy? The first step is to define the purpose for the evaluation. Is the purpose diagnostic, to learn more about our students and the reception of blended study methods prior to the course commencing? Or is it formative, enabling us to reflect on the impact of the online learning methods and activities during the delivery of the course, helping us to make adjustments to instructional methods influencing both online and the class-based learning? Or is it summative, to help us to review the impact of the course design and delivery methods on student learning, with a view to transferring lessons learned to future courses? We then need to define our focus for the evaluation and key questions. What aspects of the blended experience do we want to explore? For example, levels of student engagement in online activity relating to discourse and interaction patterns, or appropriateness of the technology in supporting study activity and the targeted learning, such as outcomes, engagement levels and interaction patterns. Assuming that we are evaluating a blended course, we may also wish to review the interrelationship between online and face-to-face elements of the course, considering themes such as the degree to which the online and class-based study methods complement each other, and the reception of the study methods and the degree to which they are viewed by students as interrelated. As a general rule, the evaluation focus should be aligned with the targeted learning outcomes for the course, what you set out to achieve with the initial design of the course, and consequently linked to the overarching course objectives. Once we are clear on these points, we can then choose suitable evaluation methods. The next step is to consider the methods that will be used to capture data on the blended module. The choice of methods will be influenced by the purpose and focus that you have identified for the evaluation, what's worth evaluating and why. The choice of methods will also be influenced by your own research philosophy in terms of what you believe can be reliably captured through research methods. For example, an outcome-based approach might focus on the measurement of online learning behaviour to assess whether students have met the targeted learning objectives. This might involve measuring levels of engagement, such as time on task, number of visits to a VLE module site, and patterns of use of e-learning tools through an analysis of contribution and course statistics. It could also measure the effectiveness of the learning by assessing levels of understanding through different test formats. An interpretative study focusing on the reception of study methods might take a different approach, examining outcomes through the eyes of those involved in the delivery of the course, such as students and tutors, through focus group interviews. This approach is geared towards providing information on the context of learning in the course, how students have experienced it. This approach will therefore address affective variables such as the feelings and motivation levels of learners, as well as attitudinal variables and the role of students' prior knowledge and experiences of blended learning in influencing their reception of the study methods. By inviting students to recount their experiences of learning in their own words, we may learn about the context of their learning and the link between formal and informal study methods, and a holistic picture of their learning experience. This enables us to gain an insight into the informal learning and study activities that go on outside the class session and the observable learning environment which shape the formal learning outcomes. Of course, this evaluation approach is not just directed to students, but should also take account of the observations of the instructional team, if you have one, such as postgraduates who teach. Their perceptions of how the learning has unfolded are also important, and this might influence changes to instructional support in the future. Although outcome-based and interpretive evaluation approaches reflect different ways of viewing reality, objectivist as opposed to subjective views of the learning, and they're based on different techniques, such as quantitative as opposed to qualitative techniques, they are not mutually exclusive. The evidence that they generate can be combined through a mixed methods approach to help construct a multidimensional or rich picture of the learning that has taken place. For example, data on perceptions and feelings on how the course has unfolded, and data on what students know and what they do. This can help us to draw conclusions on the effectiveness of the course design and delivery methods, informing how we approach future course design. If we are clear about the purpose and focus for our evaluation approach, we can then look at data collection methods. This slide captures some of the most common methods which we've seen used at the University of York. Let's have a brief look at the range of tools that we can use to track student learning within our course, working clockwise around the slide. Entry and exit surveys provide a means to measure the attitudes of learners to study methods and learning approaches. An entry survey can capture the learning profile of the cohort, addressing IT literacy, prior knowledge, experience of blended study methods, affective and attitudinal variables, such as motivation and expectations for the blended approach and use of virtual tools. The exit survey can repeat these questions on motivation and attitudes to study approaches at the end of the course, inviting students to reassess their attitudes in the light of their learning experience. Consequently, the results from the two instruments can be compared to measure the impact of the study methods. The exit survey can also include open questions, inviting detailed commentary on the study methods. Procedural feedback offers an opportunity to assess engagement levels with the learning methods as the course unfolds. This can be achieved by requesting individual or group reports on study progress at specific milestones within the course as part of a formalized process. For courses based on incremental or parallel sequencing of blended activities, a regular pattern of class-based and online activities which are interspersed, in that context the class sessions can be used for informal checks to discuss progress and explore aspects of the online tasks, acknowledging the online learning that's taking place out of the class. A simple alternative is to drop in on virtual study tasks to get a feel for how a discussion or a collaborative task is unfolding by observing what's going on online. We can also use reflective tools as part of our evaluation plan. We can invite course participants to reflect on their learning experiences as the course unfolds through personal learning journals, reflective diaries such as videos or blogs, or through completion of self-assessment proformas which might help them to assess their own progress with the learning tasks. The evidence can provide an insight into a student's approach to the learning task in question. Moving on, focus groups may be conducted during and after the completion of the course in order to learn more about student study approaches, their learning experiences, and attitudes towards the tasks. They're a good way of clarifying and eliciting more detailed answers from students on the issues that may have been raised in the exit survey. Unstructured questioning often works best, enabling students to direct the discussion rather than be led by the questioner's agenda in reflecting on their learning experiences. They can also be used to probe the experiences of tutorial teams in supporting student learning. Moving on again to course statistics. They're generated as a matter of course in most VLE learning management systems and can give a crude picture of student engagement in terms of login frequencies and the number of visits to specific areas of a course. But they won't necessarily be useful in providing information on levels of engagement with these resources, such as time on task and completing study activities. Tracking can also be enabled for specific content items to observe how widely items are accessed by students. And finally, contribution statistics may also be generated by the tools or learning management system that we're using. For example, the number of discussion forum posts made by an individual, which might be compared with total number of visits to the forum, or views of other posts to judge the level of engagement. We can also get contribution statistics for Wiki tools, focusing on the number of edits made and percentage contributions to the overall Wiki report. Again, these statistics need to be treated with caution, as they will not reflect the complete picture of student learning, i.e. what takes place outside the formal learning environment. The informal learning processes such as drafting and discussion, which may be taking place using alternative student-controlled tools, which the instructor can't see. However, taken as a whole, these statistics could help to build a picture of how a cohort is engaging with a set of online tasks. How then can we apply the data collection methods to our own course and embed them within the delivery plan? To answer this question, we need to be clear on the methods that we will be using, the feasibility of employing them within the course, and clear on when the methods will be introduced within the course, the timing. We also need to establish who will be involved, who will take responsibility for the evaluation process, including data generation and data collection. As an example, let's consider the blended course mapped out in this slide, which is sequenced class-based and online tasks in an incremental fashion, with online activity interspersed between timetabled contact sessions with students. There are a number of opportunities here for evaluation to take place. In terms of instructional responsibilities, what the instructor will do, this presents opportunities for informal progress checks and for the provision of formative feedback on performance to be built into the course design, with the instructor commenting on online tasks in the class sessions or drawing on the results of these tasks through the completion of an assessment to help inform the class-based teaching. Another responsibility for the course instructor may be to use surveys to evaluate students' reception of the learning methods. An entry survey may be included as part of the induction activities at the beginning of the course, before or during the first contact session. The exit survey will follow at the end of the course before the final assessment or circulation of marks. We've seen entry and exit surveys commonly used for courses which are delivered for the first time. Procedural data on task performance and reflection on study activities can also be drawn on in this example and can be factored in as part of the overall course design. For the instructor, this may mean configuring or checking the learning management system or tools that you're using to ensure that course statistics and contribution histories on student activity are being captured in the correct way. It could also extend to the design of the study activities. An element of the activity design may be for students to complete short progress reports at milestones during the course, which invite them to reflect on their engagement with the task and tools and their performance to date. This type of feedback will benefit student learning and provide an evaluation trail for the performance of the online tasks. Depending on the scope of the evaluation work, the instructor could also enlist the support of independent researchers to help with the evaluation of the course. A role of the central e-learning team at York has been to assist course instructors to go the extra mile and assist with the analysis of discussion logs and output from collaborative activities, as well as to lead focus groups with students to discuss their learning experiences. An independent researcher may elicit more frank exchanges with students. Again, this type of intervention needs to be planned into the course design and prefaced in the right way so that students are willing to engage, but can throw up interesting insights and is well worth thinking about. Okay, let's move on now and look at some screenshots which illustrate how previous module leaders at York have employed these evaluation methods to inform their own teaching. The screenshot of this third-year undergraduate biology module reflects how an evaluation trail can be formed through the delivery of procedural feedback on student work, which was supported in this case through the use of a group Wiki tool. Note the trademark red ink of the instructor in commenting and correcting aspects of the group report. This screenshot shows an excerpt from a case study of a health sciences module at the University of York, which used entry and exit surveys to assess students' reception of the learning methods. The results for some of the constructs, looking at the reception of online tutoring and discussion methods, are presented in the table, enabling a comparison of attitudes between the start and finish of the course as represented through responses to a 5-point Likert scale. As you can see at the bottom of the page, open questions were also introduced in the exit survey to invite participants to elaborate on the reasons behind their responses. This screenshot of the biology module shows how contribution statistics can be generated through the use of a group Wiki tool, presenting the number of page saves, frequency and percentage of saves by the individual for the group report as a whole, and the total number of lines that have been modified by the individual in the report. These statistics can give a rough indication of an individual's contribution, although they will not reflect the interaction and informal learning that shapes the group's use of this tool. The quality of the individual's learning contribution is therefore harder to assess, although there is the page history option to track the changes that have been made to the report. Continuing with the biology example, this screenshot shows that some conclusions can be drawn from the data on the nature of group activity, focusing on the distribution of roles within the group. We can gather from this whether the final editing of reports has been a shared task or one assigned to a particular individual. We may need other evidence, though, to judge individual contributions to the drafting of the report and research of findings, if these activities have not been captured through the use of the wiki. Returning again to the biology module, the table shows a content analysis of blog posts. The blog was used by groups to collate research in preparation for the drafting of their wiki reports. The categories which we've used in this table were inductively derived from the blog posts from each group, through an initial analysis of the content of the postings, which led to the definition of a series of categories of communication, ranging from organisation and management of research tasks to examples of deeper learning, such as providing feedback on a research report. The analysis helped the instructor to grasp the nature of the group dynamics, how students worked, and the roles they adopted in the preparation of their reports. This screenshot shows another example of content analysis, this time taken from a postgraduate law module. This analysis was based on blog postings for a problem-based learning activity, but employed an external framework, Fox and McKeogh's 16 categories of cognitive thinking, to interpret student contributions, using a blog post as a single unit of analysis. This framework was chosen as it mapped closely to the stated objectives for this task in addressing a range of evidence collection and cognitive skills, again helpful in tracking the development of the learning and its relationship to the targeted outcomes for this activity. The findings that were presented through this research activity were helpful to the instructor in redefining the assessment criteria for future PBL activity online. Let's move on now to consider how we bring principles and methods of evaluation together into a planned approach for a blended or online course. With a clear view of the purpose of the evaluation and the key research questions and evaluation methods and tools that you will employ, we can then bring all this information together in the form of an evaluation plan. Developing a plan is essential. It will help you to consider how the evaluation methods will be applied across the life cycle of the course, identifying key actions and the stakeholders who will be involved, as well as the timing for the activities that will take place. It will help to draw together the threads of your thinking into an action plan. We've got a template for a plan which you can adapt to suit your needs. This is available in section 7 of the York Technology Enhanced Learning Handbook. There'll be a link to the relevant section at the end of this presentation which you can make a note of. Let's move on now though to consider what we do with the evaluation data once we've collected it. What are the challenges that we should be aware of when handling this data? Caution is of course needed when interpreting student data. As with any research activity, it would be wrong to underestimate the challenges in engaging students in this process in the first place. Survey fatigue is a common problem, which can affect response rates, unless requests for feedback are coordinated with other courses and followed up in the right way. Leading questions can engender particular responses from students. The proximity of surveys to distribution of final marks can also lead to a halo horns effect occurring, with such a distractor influencing the nature of the responses that are given. As we've discussed, the evidence that we can collect may not be comprehensive enough to capture the full range of learning that's actually taking place. The visibility of student learning online may be restricted to the formal learning space where students present their finalised work, unless they're required to work within this space on the formative phases of the task. The context of learning, how, when and where students undertake their learning activities, may also be hidden from us and may well affect learning outcomes in terms of the performance of tasks and reception of the learning methods. These are thoughts to bear in mind when drawing conclusions on the effectiveness of the learning design. Finally, once the data has been collected and analysed, what do we do with it? What sort of issues should we be thinking about when considering the data and the messages it may give us on the effectiveness of our design and delivery methods? Rather than give an exhaustive list of points, the slide here captures some key issues to influence future designs, the feed-forward process to future course delivery. Through statistical data, we may consider engagement patterns for study activities. Through focus group and survey feedback, we may grasp how students perceive the usefulness of the tasks in supporting their learning, particularly if they were intended to support formative learning. Other issues may relate to the structure and sequencing of the class-based and online tasks and the relevance of the assessment plan. For instance, they may look at the design of the tasks and course materials, whether they supported different levels of learning. They might also review the timing and sequencing of the activities. How realistic are they, given other modules that are taking place at the same time, which may require other commitments from students? And we may also consider the levels of instructional support which are afforded to learners and are necessary to support them online. Drawing together the threads from this presentation, we've looked at a development cycle which considers the range of responsibilities bound up in the delivery of a blended course and its evaluation. The choice of a cycle is deliberate to highlight the connections between the design, delivery and review phases of a course, addressing the effectiveness of our course design through a continual process of improvement, rather than a one-off design and delivery process. This takes us from the definition of the course aims, course design and development, through to the delivery and evaluation of course outcomes, with evaluation methods built into the overall course plan. This will then help us to reflect in action during delivery and on action in response to the outcomes from the course to help with the development of future blended courses. If you would like to review any of the points from this presentation at your leisure, please take a look at the York Technology Enhanced Learning Handbook, specifically section 7, the link for which is presented here. This section focuses on the rationale for evaluation and touches on evaluation methods, planning, including the planning template that we've discussed, and the interpretation of evaluation data. You'll also find links to useful resources, such as guidance on survey design, how to run a focus group, etc. Thank you for listening to this presentation. Here are some references and useful resources which you may wish to look at. If you have any further questions about evaluation, please do contact a member of the e-learning development team.